Hello. In our last video we looked at the mechanisation of the cotton industry and the beginning of the factory age. Conditions in cotton mills varied widely. Some were, by the standards of the time, relatively good, others notoriously bad. Child labour was in demand, cheap to employ, and small bodies were useful for climbing into cramped spaces to clean beneath machinery. Working children was nothing new. For many families, the extra income was a vital contribution to the family budget. When first built in the 1780s, Quarry Bank Mill at Stile in Cheshire, a former cotton mill now a museum in the care of the National Trust, was not untypical in employing 100 apprentices in a workforce of 400 to 500. Richard Arkwright chose rural Cromford in Derbyshire as the location for his pioneering cotton mill because of the availability of a suitable water supply. To attract employees, ideally large families with women and children to work in the mill, Arkwright built North Street, 2 terraces of coarse rubble family houses, all with a garden plot, in 1777, the beginning of the first planned factory village. Living accommodation was a single ground floor room with a bedroom above and a well-lit open-plan attic extending along the row, providing workshop space where men could be employed as framework knitters while their wives and children laboured at the mill. Further properties followed, with a bank, hotel, church, school and chapel, and a market was established. Other textile mills in rural locations relied on large numbers of indentured apprentices from the age of 5 or 6, recruited from workhouses. Poor relief was a parish responsibility, and a Parliamentary Act of 1601, intended to ease the financial burden, had provided for children to be indentured as apprentices by agreement between a church warden and employer sworn before a justice of the peace. In 1784, a group of magistrates in Manchester decided not to allow pauper children to go to work in mills where they were expected to work more than 10 hours a day, a sign that the social impact of industrialisation was beginning to concern the authorities. Mill owners were expected to feed, clothe, house and educate their indentured apprentices. Many failed to carry out their responsibilities adequately. Litton Mill, a cotton mill established in 1782 by farmers Ellis Needham and Thomas Frith, in an isolated spot on the banks of the River Wye in Millersdale, Derbyshire, was reliant on indentured apprentices. The mill was unprofitable from the start and became notorious for its ill treatment of child workers. Apprentices who absconded risked prison. Those considered likely to attempt to run away might be put in irons and made to work wearing shackles. One former child apprentice, recruited from St Pancras Workhouse in London, Robert Blincoe, who had already served a spell working with a chimney sweep, was apprenticed at the age of 7 and sent to work at Gonalston Mill, also known as Cliff Mill, a cotton mill at Loudham in Nottinghamshire. Along with other indentured apprentices, he slept in a common dormitory and worked a 14-hour day, 6 days a week, on a diet of black rye bread and porridge. When the mill at Loudham closed, Blincoe, now aged around 10, was among 80 apprentices who were transferred to Litton Mill, where conditions were even worse. John Burley, another former apprentice at Litton Mill, described regular beatings, sleeping 3 to a bed in an apprentice house, and working from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 or 10 at night on weekdays, until 11 a.m. or noon on Saturdays, and spending Sundays cleaning machinery. Campaigners for reform included Robert Owen, best known as the pioneer of the cooperative movement. In 1799, Owen became a partner in and manager of New Lanark textile mills in Scotland. Around a quarter of the 2,000-strong workforce at the mills were children, mostly apprentices from the workhouses of Edinburgh and Glasgow. Owen acted to improve working conditions and lobbied for legislation. Progress was slow. The first in a series of Factory Acts came in 1802. The Health and Morals of Apprentices Act limited working hours for parish apprentices to 12 hours a day between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m, specified the provision of education, decent clothing, medical treatment for infectious diseases, and for boys and girls to have separate accommodation. JPs were required to appoint visitors to check on employers, enforce the Act, and levy fines for non-compliance. The Act had limited impact. A parliamentary committee investigated child labour in 1819. One of those interviewed described how he began work in a mill at the age of 7 and told how if a child was drowsy, the overlooker touches the child on the shoulder and says, "Come here." In the corner of the room there is an iron cistern filled with cold water. He takes the boy by the legs and dips his head in and sends him back to work. Some of those who gave evidence were subsequently sacked for appearing. The committee's report led to an act banning the employment of children under 9 years of age, but it only applied to cotton mills. Silk, flax, lace, wool and worsted mills were not included within the scope of the Act. More effective legislation followed, but it was a slow process. Not until 1901 was the minimum working age raised to 12 across all industries. Next time, a look at the architecture that accompanied the Industrial Revolution. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.